Aloha! This is Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing Michael W. Conrad and Noah Bailey, the creative team of Double Walkers. Now, this is a Comixology Originals digital graphic novel. It came out on July 13th and it is $6.99 on Comixology. Now, please note that Double Walker is for mature readers. Now, before I start the interview, I just want to go over a little bit history of Michael and Noah's work. So Michael is working for DC. He's currently writing Wonder Woman and the Midnighter backer story in Action Comics with Becky Cloonan. Is that correct, Michael?
That is correct. Yeah.
And then also you also wrote. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know you wrote Future State Immortal Wonder Woman. You did a short story in Superman Red and Blue #4.
That's right.
Okay, and then also too now correct me if I'm wrong, because when I was doing some research, you also are doing something called Mystery School Comics Group.
Yeah, Mystery School Comics Group is kind of this umbrella term that my partner Becky Clinton and I use for our self-published works and for making enamel pins, patches, prints. It's just kind of like all the stuff that we collectively do. Mystery School Comics Group is also kind of like this imagined publisher that is responsible for Double Walker through Comixology Originals, as well as Noah and I's previous book, Tremor Dose, which you'll see print in November of this year through Dark Horse Publishing.
Okay. All right. And then, thank you, Michael. Okay, so for Noah, now, according to Comixology, and I quote, as an illustrator, he has created work for the classics and independent films and literature, as well as regularly being featured in art books and periodicals. Now, Tremor Dose is your first graphic novel, but Noah, I did a little bit of research also too that, now correct me if I'm wrong, your first published work was in Josh Baylor's The Black Hood, and it's an anthology of depression and anxiety. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. yeah. I did a short comic for Josh Bayer's an anthology that he put together back in like 2015, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then also too, now when Comixology mentioned like that, or actually I'm going to ask, what kind of work do you do, like quote unquote, for classic and independent films? Are you doing anything currently, like for any current movie posters, or is it for independent feature films? I'm just going to ask for like a little bit more, if you could explain a little bit more.
Yeah, so I also do film poster commissions. So I do a few a year. I would do more, but recently I haven't really had a chance. Like last year, I could only do 2 at the beginning of the year, and right now I'm working on two different film posters. It's mostly horror films, but I have had some like experimental films that I've done posters for, and then I do a lot of work for film books commissions for and I did have a few commissions for some noir films that ended up actually falling through, but one of my favorites was Out of the Past. I was going to do a poster for Out of the Past, like a big screen printed poster back in I think 2018 or something, but I might just do that anyways because I love that movie so much.
I'm going to ask just for our listeners, can you just give us like the short story of what Out of the Past is and when did it come out?
Yeah, so it's Robert Mitchum and Kirk Douglas and I'm trying to think of who else is in that movie. It's I think it's from the late 40s. It's a noir film. Robert Mitchum plays a character that has like kind of a storied past, and he's trying to escape it, and someone shows up from out of his past and pulls him back into it, and it ends tragically, but it's just an absolute classic, and it's from the director who did like Cat People and I Walked with a Zombie, Jacques Tourneur. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he's one of my favorite directors. You'd think I'd know how to pronounce his name, but yeah, it's an incredible movie. So anyone that hasn't seen it, I would definitely recommend it.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Okay, sorry, I'm going to continue on. Noah, thank you very much. And then, and listeners, as Michael has mentioned that, that that he and Noah have worked on also Tremor Dose that's going to be coming out from Dark Horse Comics, and it's going to come out on November 30th. Now, for Michael and Noah, did I miss anything, anything in your guys' background?
No, I think you're pretty comprehensive. I wrote an issue of Doom Patrol that I'm very proud of. So I'll throw that out there.
Yes.
For fans of Doom Patrol, you can find in issue 5 of Weight of the Worlds. Becky and I co-wrote it, and Becky drew it, that alone is worth picking it up. Also, and this is brand new news. This just got solicited. Coming in Batman issue 115, Becky and I will be co-writing some Batgirls backups, which is very exciting for us. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, we'll be in Batman.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Thank you. Yeah, Michael, thank you very much. That's pretty awesome. Now I have Batman on my pull list at my comic shop, so yeah, I'll be checking that out.
Right, yeah, you won't be able to avoid it. It'll be stuck right in there, whether you like it or not.
Well, it's going to be like the old DC comics back in the 70s where, what was it? I think, whatever they would do Brave and the Bold, and then they would have the Human Target as a backup story.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things about writing these backups, to me, it's it's a very pure way of telling comic stories, because for way back in the day when books like Superman first started coming out, it wouldn't be a 20-page single story. It was always broken into 8-page chunks. It would be a couple different stories in one book. So when we're faced with the challenge of telling a story and making it feel worth having read, it's a challenge to do it in 8 pages.
Yes.
Even if it's continuing in the next issue or what have you. But it's challenging and it's exciting to me. Double Walker is 137 pages. So by comparison, to tell a story that's 8 pages versus 137 pages, very different tastes, very different approaches. So yeah, for me, it's just exciting to do different things.
That's pretty cool. I'm going to continue on. Where can people find you guys on social media?
Oh, I'm easy to find. I'm always on there, always doom scrolling like the rest of you. The best places to find me would be Instagram or Twitter. Okay. And on both, it's just at Michael W. Conrad. And I try and be around. If you want to say hi or send me money or anything like that, I'm there. How about you, Noah?
I'm on Instagram at Boyish Death Tribe, and then on Twitter it's Boyish Death. And yeah, that's my handle.
I'm sorry, I love that handle.
He wanted Michael W. Conrad, but I had already used it. So
yeah, that's how we met. Actually, I tried to steal his name.
He offered me money for it. He's like, "I'll give you $200."
Yep.
All right. I just wanted to. We'll probably touch back on that a little bit. Okay, now before we start getting into the interview, I want to stop to say, I want to give a big shout out to Pamela Horvath. She's the publicity director of Superfan Promotions. So, Pamela, mahalo. Thank you in Hawaii. Thank you for arranging, this interview. I'm going to ask, did you guys want to add anything to that?
Oh, absolutely. Pamela is an unsung hero. She is behind a lot of the books that you hear about that you might otherwise miss out on.
Yes.
And Pamela has really been out there. Double Walker is a boutique book. It's a book that It's not superheroes. It doesn't look like anything else
Mhm.
on the market. It doesn't feel like anything else on the market. And Pamela has gone above and beyond to make sure that the book gets the attention that it
Mhm.
deserves. And so she definitely deserves part of the credit for the fact that we're number one in the new releases on Comixology and have been since the book came out, essentially. And that's mind blowing
Yeah.
because there's many new releases, including things by people with a lot of
Mhm.
strength and power in the comics industry. So I'm not sure what mahalo means. Does that
Oh,
mean thank you?
yes, it does. It's thank
I
you in
would,
Hawaiian. Hmm.
if with your permission, I would like to say mahalo to Pamela as
Yes.
well.
No, that's great. Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, she's done so just incredible work, and she's such a sweet person. And yeah, I'm incredibly thankful to her and the whole team over at Superfan. And yeah, he's absolutely right. We wouldn't be anywhere without them. So
Yeah. And then and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. So again, you guys were like in the comicsology, you guys were number one, right? When a book
Yeah,
came out. Oh,
still are. We're
oh.
we're managing to hold on to it. It's wild. It's unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I all I can say in response to it is just thank you. You
Yeah.
know,
Mm-hmm.
we did our part. We made the best book that we could, and we're
Yes.
trying to make sure people know about it. But really, it's
Mhm.
thank you to everyone who's checking it out.
Yeah. No, but I just want to say congratulations, on that success. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
thank
you.
you very much.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to start. So where did you guys grow up?
I grew up in the Quad Cities in Iowa, on the
Mm-hmm.
border of Iowa and Illinois,
Mm-hmm.
on the Mississippi, a few hours west of Chicago. Not much going on here, honestly. So just watched a lot of horror films and just films in general growing up. That was like my whole childhood, really.
Mm-hmm.
I'd read tons of comics. Those were,
Mm-hmm.
that was my entire childhood. That's really all I can say about that because it's very boring otherwise. So
Yeah, I grew up in a small town as well. I grew up in New Hampshire,
Uh-huh.
in New England, in a small town called Merrimack, which is, I don't know, it's like maybe 45 minutes north of Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I grew up feeling like I was close to this major metropolitan area, but it was just out of reach. It wasn't, there was no train, there was no bus, there was no way for me. My parents wouldn't have let me go there anyway. But I knew like, oh, there's a beautiful city right over there full of college students and big ideas and dreams and comic shops and record stores. But no, I was in a small town with a tiny little library,
Mm-hmm.
no movie theater. I think we got a bowling alley when I turned like 12. So
Mm-hmm.
that was really exciting. Couldn't afford to go to it. And so
Mm-hmm.
I spent a lot of time in the library, just checking out mythology books and whatever comic books they had. The very small library, so limited exposure to a lot of stuff. So I feel like maybe part of the reason why I've continued to love comic books and weird movies and stuff like that into my adulthood is because I didn't have great access to that kind of thing growing up.
No, but actually, I was gonna say, Michael, for you and Noah, it sounds great for you guys because the thing is, there's no other distractions around. Because I mean, um, you know, because Michael, for you to be in the library, I mean, that's you know, it's great because then you're focusing on, looking through things from Ray Bradbury, you know, um,
Totally.
some classic stuff, and also too the mythology too, because and I'll touch upon it a little bit later in when we talk about Double Walker, but I could see the strong mythology, correct me if I'm wrong, Scottish mythology in the story, and that's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, in a way, it is fortunate to. I'm also of a generation that had less distractions. I didn't have easy access to the internet. we owned video games, but the types of video games that we had in my youth were like Atari games,
Yeah.
which wouldn't command as much attention and commitment as a modern day game that takes 80 hours to complete.
Yeah.
I don't think those things are bad. I don't think that excellent, like, man, there's so much cool TV right now and streaming and all this.
Yes.
I don't think those are bad. I don't think it's taking away from the imaginations of children. I think everything feeds the imagination. For me, just the main course of my imagination being fed, you hit the nail on the head. Ray Bradbury was a huge one.
Yes.
Huge one. All of that. Anyone who was a weirdo in writing, I would gravitate to and cling on to stuff that I shouldn't have been reading at a young age. My parents were like, yeah, read whatever. So I'd be reading Stephen King stuff and learning about things that I probably shouldn't learn about. And yeah, absolutely. It gave me a love and a passion for all types of writing. Just like how Noah, you must have spent a lot of time drawing as part of your escape from your little town, in the same way that I was reading to escape.
Oh yeah. My teachers used to tear up my drawings all the time because I wouldn't be paying attention, and I just draw all through class. Yeah.
No, the other thing too, Noah, what's really good is, and I'll get into your influences in a bit, but already you've mentioned about your love for classic horror stuff, or even noir films like from the 1940s. Because I like to think myself as a sort of a film buff, but I'm not the film buff where it's I'm the film buff that kind of knows those key films like Orson Welles' Citizen Kane, Seven Samurais. That other film that you mentioned about Robert Mitchum and Kirk Douglas, I've never heard of it, but now I'm kind of going, that sounds pretty cool. And and then also too, we talked about, before we started the interview, you talked about, the classic horror movie called The Changeling with George C. Scott. Yes. So, and it really shows that, it's great that you have this love for these classics. It really is.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's like, I think film is probably my biggest influence as far as the way that I compose images. I'm always, especially with noir films, I'm constantly drawing inspiration from those. There's this great movie called The Setup by Robert Wise. He did West Side Story and and The Haunting. But yeah, I mean the lighting effects and the shadows and the use of black and the foreground, midground, background, and like Orson Welles was a master of that. So I'm constantly drawing inspiration from those things.
Yeah, so no, but that's great. And like I said, no, I'm going to touch upon that in a little bit. Okay, so no, I'm going to start off with you because you said that did you have a comic shop in your town? Do you remember?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so across the river in Rock Island, there was a shop called Tim's Corner when I was growing up, and I would go in there as often as I could, and that was just like the greatest fun, because I mean it was just a complete mess. There was no organization whatsoever. This place looked like it there were just images strewn all over the place and taped to the ceiling and to the walls, and it was so fun to just go through all those boxes and find things that looked interesting, and it was incredible. But that place, actually, I guess a few years ago, there was a jewelry shop next door to it, and they had a propane tank that exploded in there, so the place was destroyed, I guess. blew it off its foundation and almost killed a few people. And yeah, and you know, that place to me was like, I mean, and any comic fans from the Quad Cities would, that's like a staple, you know, that was like a seminal part of people's youths, you know. So it's kind of sad that it's no longer there, but yeah, I loved that place.
So, and then Michael, I know you said that, you know, for you, basically, you know, your source for the comics were the library. I'm going to ask, you know, do you remember what was your first LCS shop that you went to, that you bought your first comic book?
Yeah, a lot of times I'll make a joke when people ask me that. I'll say the flea market, because that was that was just where I found comics.
Yeah.
My parents, it wasn't that they were against comics, but they certainly weren't super supportive of me in the same way that they would with literature. With a novel, they would maybe go out of their way or throw me a few bucks and say, yeah, go pick up the new whatever book. With comics, it was a little bit different. They just didn't see that, they didn't think it was worth the money. Even when comics were like 75 cents a piece. So yeah, we would, if we went to the flea market, one time I found a stack of like Teen Titans, and it was like $3 for a big stack of them. So my parents got that for me. But there was a comic shop actually in my childhood, maybe 20 minutes from my house. It's just, I would so rarely get to go there. So rarely. Eventually I got a paper route, and I would save all my money, and I would wait all year until that one blessed day when mother would drive me to the comic shop, and she would wait in the car. She would say, all right, go in, you know, don't be long, 15 minutes. And I'll have kept this like mental idea of like, oh, I want to get these comics.
Yes.
And I never wrote it down, which was a real mistake, because the minute I walked into that shop, I would not be able to remember a single thing that I wanted to get. So I ended up leaving with a bunch of just kind of random things.
Yeah.
But I used to love to get anthology stuff or one shots, one and done.
Yes.
When you're poor and have limited access, it was really great to be able to no, I'll get a Tales from the Crypt reprint, and it's going to have like 5 or 6 stories in it. Or I'll get a What If Spider-Man married Mary Jane or whatever.
Yes.
Because you know, like, okay, it's one and done. I was so used to picking up a comic and have it be part 3 of a 7-part story, and no, I'm never going to be able to track down the rest of this. And my partner and I make jokes about how that's part of what contributed to us becoming writers, is when you're unable to fill in those gaps with the issues themselves, you just imagine what happened. Oh, Silver Surfer ended up beating Galactus in this way, or what have you. Yeah. So you learn how to tell stories by not having the story in front of you.
But yeah, but Michael, I'm going to comment. I understand because I grew up in that time in the 70s, because basically I remember my mom wanted me to try to read more books. Because in the 70s I never read books. You know, my mom used to read comics, but she didn't want me to read comics because, again, and I'm going to say probably back then in the 70s, where the stigma was comics were not, it's not literature. It's, you know, it's not a book. It's not a complete book, you know. But then I'm going to say that's so cool when you mentioned your first comic shop was a flea market, because those were the best. You know, those were the best because, you know, 10 cents for a comic, you know, you know, and as a kid, we just didn't care. We didn't care if Wolverine is the first appearance of Wolverine in Hulk 181. I don't care. That guy with these claws popping out of his hands, that's so cool. You know?
Yeah. I didn't have that kind of collector mentality.
Yeah.
I had a degree of it in that I had a limited number of comics and I wanted to keep them in good condition because I knew, I own 20 comics. I want to be able to reference these things. I love to draw images that I would see in there. And I love that we're talking about how the reputation of comics is evolving. It is continuing to change. We're seeing, and it's part of it is because of these movies, like everyone loves the MCU movies.
Yes.
So then they end up reading a comic.
Yes.
And oftentimes I'm sure they're blown away by how good the comic is and how in certain ways it's better than a film. And beyond that, I mean, our generation are growing up and becoming the future educators. I remember when I was in English class, my senior year, I was in an advanced placement English class, and I had this teacher who was kind of cutting edge. And one of the things that we were assigned to read over the summer leading into senior year was V for Vendetta by Alan Moore, of course. And I was like, I can't believe like this is a high school thing. Like my parents kind of have to buy me this comic. Or by then I already owned it. I was working and stuff, but so even that was in 97 or 98. Even then, people were starting to come around, and I think here we are in 2021, and we're seeing comics more respected and more seen as something that is not garbage, that is quite possibly as good as literature. It's art with a big A.
Yes. Noah, before I continue on, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I guess, I guess when I was in high school, I had terrible acne, and I was like so depressed, and I was scared to talk to people. And I remember I would just read comics all day long. I would just pretend I wasn't there, and anywhere I would go, I would bring a handful of comics with me just so that I could disappear, and that was like the biggest thing that got me through that time was like, the Sandman and all of anything Alan Moore wrote and anything Grant Morrison, and I think that as far as escapism goes for kids, comics are like the greatest way to escape, and it's like life-changing stuff, but I mean, sorry to add a sour note.
No, that's fine. Yeah. Before I continue on, this is off the cuff because you guys already mentioned Alan Moore, Grant Morrison. I'm going to ask, have any of you guys ever met Neil Gaiman or Grant Morrison?
Michael has. Michael's met Grant Morrison. They've had a fun night together. They hung out.
It's true. So I went to visit friends at a signing in LA. And the friends were my now partner Becky Cloonan was signing with Gerard Way when they did True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys for Dark Horse Comics some years ago. And they were signing with a bunch of other great creators. And I met up with Becky and Gerard, and I met up with Becky, and we walked into the green room, and there was a bunch of creators in there, and everyone's talking and like having snacks or whatever, getting ready for the signing to happen. Then all of a sudden the place went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop, and I look over my shoulder at the door. Something powerful has happened to this room to where no one is speaking anymore. And I look over and there he is. It's Gerard Way. And I was like, oh, the rock star, singer of My Chemical Romance. Everyone is showing respect and being quiet. But then I see like behind him is Grant Morrison, who isn't scheduled to be there. And I realized like, oh, maybe that's why no one's talking, because like the great chaos magician himself has like entered into the room. slowly people started like murmuring a little bit, but it was clear like this place is funky now. There's a weird energy in here because everyone's afraid because there's someone that they respect standing in the corner.
Yes.
So I turned to Grant. I'm a huge Grant fan. And I said, Grant, I'm not going to ignore this. I am a huge fan. And he was like, oh, thanks. You know, like, and we start laughing, shaking hands, this and that. And all of a sudden the room comes back to life and it's all good.
Yeah.
We start, you know, just talking a little bit. And Grant's like, hey, there's a Pee Wee Herman art show happening next door. You want to go over there and check it out? And so I went over. It was a Pee Wee Herman themed art show with all kinds of weird stuff going on. And just Grant and I walking along, talking about books we like, this, that, and the other. We were there for a while, like well over an hour. Then all of a sudden, these women rolled in a cart full of alcohol. They said, hey, would you guys like a drink? I guess the show wasn't open, and just the powers of Grant got us access into there. So I looked at Grant, and Grant was like, yeah, I'll have one. And I rubbed my hands together and said, I will too. So sure enough, we spent more time talking and enjoying a couple drinks. And then just like he came in like a magic man or magic person. I should be clear, Grant is non-binary, and if I've used the male pronoun for him or for them, I apologize. He just as they were when they showed up, they disappeared just the same. Off to get Thai food, and you know, I hold that memory very dear because Grant has been such a huge inspiration to me. Particularly their work on Animal Man and Invisibles. A lot of that early stuff really kind of defined the way that I look at comics, and certainly Doom Patrol. That's part of the reason why I had to bring up like, oh, I wrote an issue of Doom Patrol.
Oh, that's right.
Because Grant was so important to my childhood.
Yeah, that is so cool.
I've never met Alan. I'm friendly with his daughter, who's Leah Moore. She's super talented. She's a great comic writer herself. I hope to meet Alan at some point here. Neil, I can't even hope to ever meet.
Okay.
I think Neil is just kind of functioning on such a high level right now that I doubt he's gonna be doing any comic cons or anything anytime soon, which would really probably be the only way that I met him.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, listeners. I didn't mean to go off the cuff, but Michael, that's such an incredible story, and
it was serendipity. You know, it's. I'm not the type of person who gets starstruck, but certainly around Grant, I felt challenged for a moment. Luckily, they're such like a sweet person that everything was gravy.
Yes, I think that's the incredible part is like he responded well. He talked to you and he goes, hey, you want to go check this Pee Wee Playhouse or Pee Wee art show? I mean,
it was surreal. It felt like I was in a David Lynch film or something.
All right. So Michael, I'm sorry. So I'm going to continue. I'm sorry. Okay. So now I'm going to ask, Michael, so you and Noah, how did you guys meet?
We've got very different stories about this. Mine is a lie and Noah's is true.
I want to hear the lie.
I say that I stumbled across Noah's art as you do when you're online. You just kind of sniffing around, seeing what's cool. And I believe that I saw Noah's art and I reached out to him and said, we must work together. Like you are creating things that look like they're ripped out of my own dreams and made manifest. Noah claims he reached out to me.
Mm-hmm.
But like
Well, I didn't reach out to you exactly. Michael used to be a guest, a frequent guest on Forever Midnight podcast, which is a horror film podcast
Mm-hmm.
that I'm a huge fan of, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was hilarious and like just a really bright guy, you know. So I started following him on a bunch of different forms of social media, and so I kind of, you know, put myself in front of him a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't exactly reach out to him. But yeah, then he did reach out to me and asked me if I wanted to be join a suicide pact with him and make a comic that would make no money. And that's what he said to me. And I said, hell yeah, that's
Uh-huh.
what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I really know I know how to win him over. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
hey, you want to lose a bunch of money?
Okay, so we're going to segue in to Double Walker. So, for either one of you guys, Michael or Noel, you know, what is the premise for Double Walker?
Wow. Noah, do you want to field that, or should I?
Oh, I mean, I can attempt to, and you
Yeah,
can
go
fill in
for
the
it.
cracks. Okay. So an American couple who are they're having their first child. They're going on a trip to Scotland as kind of a last hurrah before their lives change,
Mm-hmm.
and they just kind of want to see all the sights and enjoy themselves. And they go to the Scottish Highlands and they go to Store and to the old man of Store. And when they're up there, something tragic happens. And I mean, I'm doing a terrible job, Michael. You take over.
No,
Man.
you've done a great job. I think that's really what people need to know. It's
Yeah.
people,
That's it.
a couple are at a point in their life that so many of us get to, where you kind of see, it's kind of like seeing the end of your own childhood by seeing like this potential new child coming into your life. So yeah, they're kind of celebrating this transitional point. A tragedy happens, and the tragedy continues to happen for a lot of pages, and there's a mystery, and that's about all that I really care to say about that. The mystery involves some of the lore of Scotland and some of the beautiful sights that are available to be seen if you go on a journey such as they did.
Yes. And then now your main character, now the American couple, the main characters, now correct me if I'm wrong, it's a husband and wife. The husband name is Cully and the wife name is Gemma. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. And I named Cully after my friend Cully Hamner, who's a fantastic artist. He's worked on a lot of DC comics. And at the time that I named the character Cully, I had just met him. I moved to Austin a few years ago, and he lives out here. And I thought his name was so cool, and I thought he was like so sweet and so kind to me to welcome me into his community. So I wanted to name a character after him, and at the time I guess I didn't think about like how rough this story was. Double Walker ended up being. It's bleak, it's dark, and I had mentioned it to Cully Hamner early on. I said, hey, would it be okay if I named a character after you? And he said, oh, that would be an honor. And now I don't know if he's read Double Walker yet, but I wonder if he would feel good about it now that the story is out. But yeah, Cully Hamner is a great and beautiful person. Yeah, the similarity is in name alone. Cully did that Superman Red and Blue story with me. We did a Bizarro story, and Cully was the artist on that.
Fantastic.
Okay. Let's see. Let's see. I'm gonna continue on this story because I've read the story. I'm not gonna spoil it for anyone. So I've read Double Walker, and one of the things, again, either Noah or Michael, you know, because it goes really deep into Scottish legends and folklores. So I'm going to ask, because one of the key legends, hopefully I'm not spoiling too much, what is the legend of the Old Man of Store? I know that's in the first 5 pages, you know.
Yeah. I love that that's the one that we're referencing, because I gotta admit that one's a bit of a fabrication. It may be part of certain elements of lore, but the way that we portrayed it in Double Walker was that. So the reason it's called the Old Man of Store is an old man it's a term for a giant. That was what Scottish folks called giants, was just old men or great men. They would be these legendary creatures of gigantic proportions that would fight with each other and meddle in the ways of men. I don't know if it's strictly part of Scottish lore, or if it's something that we kind of expanded on. But in our story, the Old Man of Store is this stone outcropping. I've been there, and it's beautiful. And you've seen it if you've seen. It's in the beginning of Prometheus, that alien movie. It's that weird. It's almost like a long egg of stone that comes out of the ground, and a couple other little ridgy bits. So we kind of imagined this to be the body of a fallen giant, and the earth has kind of swallowed it and has reclaimed this body, and it's been the food source for fairies, because they're like a dying breed of these kind of wiggly interdimensional type of beings from another reality. I think some people who know more about Scottish legend would say, you've made that up. That isn't part of our thing. And then others would say, no, I think you're kind of right. That is like his toe sticking out of the ground. And that's kind of that was our approach with many of these elements of Scottish lore within the book. It's not meant to be necessarily a guidebook to Scottish cultural heritage. It's meant to, everything's meant to serve the story. But yeah, we did so much research. We really wanted to get it right. We wanted to honor the people of Scotland. We wanted to honor the stories that are a big part of their cultural heritage, and to honor the land itself. The land is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I saw somebody recently tweeted a review of this where they said, I never want to go to Scotland after reading this book because it was scary. And I wanted to reach out to them and say, please go to Scotland. Like, Scotland is great. Like, I don't want to get on the bad side of Scottish folks. Yeah. This is a love letter to that culture, to that land, and to the lore. So any liberties that we've taken, please take them with a grain of salt.
I'm not going to spoil anything, but I've read the story. What I love is the barkeeper and how he tells the story, and whatever the many legend, and I'm sure if I go to, I'm going to say, for you guys, Michael and Noah, if you guys come here, if you guys go down to one of these, and not one of these famous bars, but just a regular town bar or something, where locals hang out, I'm sure you're going to have someone that's going to be going, they're going to tell you tales, of Hawaiian folklore and legend. And then and as many stories are orally told down the years, and even some written ones, it's always going to be not warped, but things would be added, things would be, the true intent would be muddled.
Right. That's why in every mythology, you'll have a variety of different versions of the same tale. It'll be the story of Hercules and his labors, and each one, it'll maybe change a little bit. And in some of like Hercules' labors, one is like he's got to muck a stall for like a giant horse.
Yeah.
And the person who put that labor in there, they were like, man, I hate mucking the stall.
Yeah.
Like it's the worst job of them all. Let's have this demigod have to do that. So I think in every culture with an oral tradition, you see it kind of in different areas. Like I'm sure in Hawaii, in different areas, there's certain legends that are told just a little bit different, maybe highlighting that particular area a little bit more, or this particular group of people are more important in the story. A favorite god, favorite spirit takes a stronger role.
but
Noah was really responsible for those lore sequences feeling serious and feeling like they had great merit and value in the hands of a lesser artist. Those would have been such awful scenes. So I just got to give Noah his props right now. Do it when you're telling fairy stories. There is a huge possibility that you're going to get laughed out of the room because American culture has changed the way that we engage with fairies. We are expecting Tinkerbell, a fairy godmother, like a Disney-fied, a very safe, wholesome kind of approach to fairy tales. So without Noah creating that visual language and defining the script in a way that was undeniably scary and wasn't at all what one might expect of a fairy story in 2021 United States, that's really a credit to Noah and the research that he did as well.
So I'm going to ask, so Noah, like off the cuff, so what kind of research did you do, like for the landscape in the book, and basically the bar setting where majority of the story is taking place?
So for the bar setting, I actually found several Scottish bars. One being in the town that Double Walker is actually based in, but we don't come out and say it. It's Fort Augustus in Scotland, and there's a bar in that town that I based the Mangled Stag pretty heavily off of. But I found several different pubs that I was really into aesthetically, and I kind of just did my own little thing with them, but that I loved drawing that whole bar setting. That was like such a fun setting, and that barkeep is my favorite character. But I loved the doing the different colors in the bathroom and then that hallway, and having the contrast of that like green and blue color scheme, and then out in the main bar area it's like pink and yellow. I used tons of reference because I just really wanted to get everything as close as I could, and I bought a lot of books, watched a lot of like YouTube videos of people walking through the Scottish Highlands and driving through Fort Augustus, and that was it. That was the research is always the most fun part, because I loved learning so much about Scotland, and I hid a lot of things in there too, like some things that I found out, like with the chapter illustrations. That's a reference to some Scottish lore, and
that's right.
So I just think, I mean, that's like Michael said, I think we really wanted it to be like a love letter to these things, and really like pay respect to it. And when you're spending all that time researching it, and it's difficult not to just throw little things in there, as like for someone who knows, it's like wow.
So I'm sorry, I'm going to step back a little bit. One question I wanted to ask was, so how did you, I know Michael, I know you may have touched upon it and may have missed it, but how did you guys come up with the story, and like how long did it take for you guys to complete the story before bringing it to Comixology?
So when our first book came out, Tremordos came out in, Noah, help me out. It was on like Halloween of 2019.
Yeah.
I happened to be in Scotland at that time. I was out in the UK for a comic book convention called Thought Bubble. It's one of my favorite conventions. And part of what is my favorite about it is that it gets me into the UK. I go out there, do that, and then we usually stay a little bit longer and try and see a few things. And on this particular year, we were like, let's go to the Isle of Skye. Let's go to on what is essentially the journey that Cully and Gemma go on. We went to these places. We stayed in the town that this thing was based on. We went on the hike up Store. We went to Loch Ness. We did all these things. And it just kind of sat somewhere in the back of my mind. I was like, wow, this place is beautiful. I could live here.
Yes.
Came back from there, got together with Noah. We knew that we were going to do another book with Comixology. We didn't know we were going to do something about fungus. We wanted to do, like, I'm really into fungus.
Okay.
We wanted to do something about fungus. But there was like another book happened around that same time that was like maybe a little bit close to the idea that I had originally pitched to Noah. So I thought it was like a lightning bolt struck me or something. I was like, oh, this will be the story. I've always been really into the idea of doppelgangers, which is what double walker means. Double walker is a translation of doppelganger. So I reached out to Noah and I said, listen, I know this isn't fungus, but I've got this idea that's really creepy and I want you to believe in me. And they marketed Tremordos as a horror book, and we never really saw it as a horror book. We saw it as just kind of like weird, just like it's just maybe science fiction or something. And I said to Noah, if we're going to get marketed as horror, let's do something truly mean-spirited, something that is brutal and rough. And Noah said, all right, come up with an idea and make it worth my time. So I punched up some character descriptions and a rough idea of what I'm looking to do. Shot it over to Noah. Noah liked it. So then it was off to the races. I think I wrote it, I don't know, me.
Look, I think it was like a few months. I think
it took a while.
Yeah, well, we had several drunken nights of discussing the type of thing that we wanted to do in that time too, and you told me, I remember you walked to my apartment and we walked to Barflies, the bar, and you told me the whole story on the way there, and I was like, I'm ready for this.
I'll do it. Yeah, so I wrote it in like 25-page chunks, which is part of why there are chapter breaks in there. It just felt good for the pacing. And also, we didn't know how it was going to be released. We didn't know if we would do it as a graphic novel or as issues or whatever.
Yes.
I would send them over to Noah kind of as I was going, because we knew exactly what we were meant to achieve. And I wanted to give Noah all the time that I could to make sure that he was able to render these pages however he saw fit. And so Noah started working on the first page before the book was even fully written. He had already started, he had done character designs straight away, started doing a ton of research and started ripping. So Noah, you probably have a much better, I know you kind of kept track of your progress. How long did it take you to do like the principal art for the whole thing?
It took me 5 months to do all of the physical artwork, and then and that's working every single day. I mean, like I didn't take a day off that entire time, and then after that, it took another 2 months, I think, to color the whole thing.
Hmm.
And yeah, that was just it was a blast though. That was a great time. I had so much fun.
No, can I just ask? Sorry, Mike, I'm gonna jump in. No, can I ask? For our listeners who are artists or want to be artists, um, because and let me give some of the references that you may. I think some of your influences, because I watched Comics Watch episode 74 from, it's a YouTube podcast from April 9th, 2020, and I know you said, now correct me if I'm wrong. Some of your influence on art is like from a Japanese movie called um okay, this is bad on
Kiraneko.
Japanese. I'm bad with Japanese words. um
Me
Also,
too.
you're also influenced by Charles Adams, the Adams family's creator. You're influenced by, correct me if I'm wrong, Orson Welles, the legendary late great Alex Toth, and Richard Corbin. And then also, to correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy Cullis? Is that another?
Kolwitz.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. It's okay.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So yeah, those are some of my favorite artists. I think I, I I look at artwork all day long, and I just can't, have been doing that for my entire life. So my interests are constantly evolving. But I
Yeah.
think yeah, Richard Corbin has been a huge influence on me for a really long time,
Mhm.
and yeah, Orson Welles, Fritz Lang, um, yeah, and let me think who else. Mike Nichols, he did like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and The Graduate, and yeah, this Disney illustrator named Gustav Tangren, who was like he did a lot of concept artwork for Pinocchio and for Bambi and things like that. Um, yeah, yeah, those are a few of my influences. Yeah, it just changes all the time on.
Because the other thing, and I'm gonna, because um, let me preface this before I ask the question, because in Double Walker, what I love is that it seems like there's a different blend of art style in there. Correct me if I'm wrong, because like there's I see how Cully is drawn, and I see how Gemma is drawn, and I see Gemma is drawn with a strong manga animated style, because that's the thing that stuck out for me. And then I know in later in the story there's certain couple close-ups of certain panels, there's certain close-ups. I really can see Richard Corbin's influence in there. So I'm just going to ask, like I said, I know this is going to sound like a dumb question, or I'm repeating myself, but can I just ask if you can describe what your art style is to our listeners?
Sure. Yeah, I think that my art style is kind of like ooh, like sometimes I like to do like hyper realistic paintings, I really enjoy doing that. Like that's one of my favorite things about doing film posters is that I get to do portraits of actors and actresses, and I like compiling images and creating my own image of a person. So I love, if there's a shot where I know I really need to bring some like real life horror to it, and like in Double Walker, I love to compile reference or take my own reference and kind of like get really into rendering. But other than that, I think I'm a huge fan of this comic of a French comic book artist named Jacques Tardy, and he's a huge influence on the way that I draw figures, especially. And yeah, I think that it's like cartoon realistic, I suppose. I don't know.
No.
um, I think I think it's I said this at one point, and I think that it's kind of this weird version of like Robert Crumb mixed with Bill Sienkiewicz or something like that.
But I have to say for our listeners, for Double Walker, and like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but I love it how that, because I saw all the different art styles in there, that it blended well. It worked, you know.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh yes. You know, and also to and I'll say this because I know we were, you know, I sent you guys emails on setting this up, but after I read Double Walker, one of the panels I love, and it's early on, Noah, is what I love is the colors, and I mentioned it to you already, that, you know, in one panel in the bar, um, you know, you kind of sort of like grayed out the barkeeper, but you could see the barkeeper. And then you have, you know, Gemma and Cully on, you know, on, I think, the barkeeper's left side, and the two bar patrons on the right side use a different color scheme on them. And the background, you still included a background, and it's a different color scheme because you're, and what I loved about it is that you're trying to show where the readers to really focus on. And that's what I love that scene.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that's all of those shots. I was really I heavily inspired by Orson Welles and the way that he separates his foreground, midground, and background, and then sometimes, you know, 20 layers on top of that. And that was like some of the most fun that I had, was kind of conceptualizing how to always play with those different layers. And there's like that one shot in like one of the like first pages of the book where they're sitting there talking to Deidre at the breakfast table.
Yes.
And you're looking through the you know, from the stairs.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing things like that and separating it with different colors and things like that. And thank you so much for noticing that. I appreciate it.
No, but like I said, it's visually stunning. It really is.
Thank you.
Michael, I'm sorry. There is one question I wanted to ask. I didn't write it down. In the story, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was like one of the inspectors, of course, you know, because they kind of sort of, because with all this murder mystery was going on and stuff like that, you know, because one of the inspectors thinks that it's some type of one of the these murders maybe has to be linked to one of the legends. Now, one of the inspectors mentions something about, yes, we used to, back in the old days, we used to do this, this, and this, and he mentions a lottery. My question is that a reference to Shirley Jackson's short story, The Lottery?
Yeah, I think that's definitely kind of the line of thinking that I wanted people to go into. Whether it was directly that short story, or if it was something like what you might see in like Wicker Man, or one of these old kind of pagan rite situations where someone must be sacrificed, and it's almost like a celebration, like, yay, you get to be the one who is fed to the green man or whatever. But definitely, like, it was a deliberate choice to use that term lottery, because that short story had such a profound effect on me as a young person, that and it always seemed like such a bizarre thing, because when I think of lottery now, if I'm thinking of it outside of a literary context, I think about, like, I don't know, like a bingo hall, or someone spending a bunch of money on Powerball. It's like silly and goofy to me. But then that story is so incredibly serious that that I wanted that like moment where, if you've read that short story and you're familiar with it, to feel like, oh, now I understand the gravity of this thing. That's really cool that you caught that. And these are the type of things that, like, Noah and I look for in readers. So often readers think, like, oh, it's our job to critique this piece. I'll have you know, as creators, we're critical of the reader. We're critical of y'all's ability to get on our level and to hang with us and to see the things that we're trying to do, whether you love them or hate them. That is for the individual to determine, and bless you, you're welcome to your opinion. But it's so great and it's so heartening when someone like you will notice the hard work that Noah's done to create a visual language that shows depth and depth of field and things of that nature, and to pick up, a tiny little one-word literary reference. That means a lot to us. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. Because I'm going to say, Michael, because for Shirley Jackson's The Lottery, for that short story to have an impact on you, it shows that it also had an impact on me. Because I read that short story for my high school English. I don't know. So and we're talking 40 years ago.
Yeah.
I've read a bunch of other short stories during that, in those classes. I don't read, I vaguely remember those, but,
Right.
But when I saw that, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, that's the power of stories, right? Not every story is going to stick with you for a lifetime.
Yes.
And it's really neat when something does. And you don't get to choose the memories you have. That's like the great lamentable thing about the way that our brains work, right? Is we can remember something foolish or something painful from our childhood so clearly, but we can't remember like our mother's face. My mother passed several years ago, and I've struggled to remember like the sound of her voice. But meanwhile, I can remember what my neighbor sounded like when he was making fun of me on the playground. Yeah. We don't get to choose our memories. And it's a real testament to the strength of a story when a story manages to make the cut in the little bit of bandwidth that we have to be able to draw from our memories. And even if it's just the name, even if you don't remember exactly what happened in the book The Lottery, you remember an emotion. There's there's an emotional response to it.
Yes.
This thing was weird. This thing harmed me a little bit. This thing caused a little scar on my brain that is maybe a good and beautiful thing. So what a cool shared thing that we have there. And that's the power of creating something, is when you feel that connectivity between. We wish to feel connected to the people that read our work. We wish to feel like this is a shared experience. We've done a lot of work to make this thing happen, and now the reader becomes like the most important component to it. One of the most important things I learned in school about reading was we read Lord of the Flies, different Lord book.
No, yes.
We read Lord of the Flies, and the teacher kept talking about the symbolism. There's a scene where they're talking about this pink granite. There's pink granite all over the island, and the teacher said, you know what, that's like a little bit of foreshadowing, because like one of the kids falls off the thing and his blood goes on the splatters across the granite. That's foreshadowing. And I being the little firebrand I said, no, I don't think that's the case. I think it's just pink granite. I think. And the teacher said, it means whatever I think it means. Interpretation is an individual thing, and if you feel a certain way and you can validate it to yourself, then that is what it means, whether the writer intended it or not.
Excuse me.
Which is part of the fun with the types of stories that Noah and I like to tell, where we leave a little bit of room to dream and a little room to figure out how you feel about these characters and these stories. So we welcome the reader to become an active participant, rather than don't just let the story happen to you, like happen with it. Think about what it means to you, and write a cool review of it. Do that. Give it 5 stars and send us money.
Put it on Goodreads too. Come on, Goodreads.
Goodreads. We're like, leave me alone.
Okay, sorry guys. I'm going to continue on because I'm going to slowly start wrapping this up. How did you guys assemble your creative team, and give them shout outs too?
Yeah, it was easy. It was me and Noah for forever. And that was kind of that's how we had planned on it being. That's how it was with Tremor Dose. It was just the two of us. We didn't have an editor. We didn't have anything. With Double Walker, we wanted to bring in a letterer,
Yes.
particularly because we were getting a little tight on time, and quite frankly, we both had other things to be doing, and we also wanted it to be like the highest quality that we could get.
Mm-hmm.
So we called up the folks over at Ghost Glyph.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor Esposito lettered it with his team and did an incredible job, turned it around super fast. We're awesome about us nitpicking and having them go back in and get things just right.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And then with regard to some of the design work with the book, we've got this friend, and he's one of the most creative people and most talented people that we know, Kyle Ahrens. So Noah kind of brokered that one, because I said, Noah, like anything with regard to the visual quality of this book, I'm leaning on you, because Noah's got a visual IQ that I can't touch. So Noah was like, I'm bringing in a ringer, and I'll let Noah talk about the process of bringing Kyle in and what Kyle brought to the team.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, I've been trying to figure out ways to bring Kyle into every single creative thing that I do, because he's just an absolute genius. And, you know, he and I have been friends for over a decade, and we used to live together in Chicago. And, yeah, it was just a no-brainer to bring him on board. And he also, he created we did a teaser trailer for the book. And,
yes, I saw it. That's right.
yeah. And he animated and scored and directed that entire thing. And I mean, he's just brilliant, you know, and that's his first time ever animating. You know, he's a fantastic musician. He's like, yeah. So, and, you know, so from here on out, he's going to be involved in everything that we do in some way or another. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to being a 3-piece team from now on, you know?
Yeah. And for us, it's always been critical to have the relationship be kind of front and center. Like Noah and I have to trust each other a lot. With these projects, there's contracts involved, and there's money, and there's this, that, and the other. And it's so funny because we're both always trying to like surrender parts of our money. Like we'll develop the contract. There will be X amount of money involved, and then it'll be between us to determine how it gets distributed. And we're both always like, don't worry about me, bud. Like, meanwhile, eating ramen for dinner every day. Don't worry about me. You just make sure that you're all right. So that is what's critical. That is that financial suicide pact that we talked about way back in the day. We're going to agree as two people, Noah and myself, that no matter what, we're going to continue making these stories, whether people show up for them, whether there's money, if we got to print these things ourselves at Kinko's at 2 a.m. with borrowed money, that's the way it's going to be. And that is the creative spirit. That is the drive. That is the only reason that these things have been even moderately successful, is because we have refused to stop. We've refused to compromise. We've refused to do things that we know would probably sell better. Noah's refused to alter his style. I've refused. We sent this book to a couple of publishers, at least the pitch, before we decided, like, oh, we're definitely going to go with Comixology Originals again. And one of the notes that we got back was like, we're concerned about the pacing of it. No, you don't get it. Like, that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing, is the pacing. It's meant to be something that draws you in and keeps you turning the page because you want to see what's going to happen. If we give you the big thing straight away, you can fold the book in half, fold your iPad in half in this case, and you're done. It's kind of like a it's like these older movies that Noah likes. It's like A24 movies. It's, you know, the Eggers type stuff, the Ari Aster type stuff, where it's horror of a psychological ilk, that takes some time. We got to make you care about these characters and care about their circumstances, and then pervert that and change that and make it hard to watch what's happening. And you're stuck watching this thing fall apart before you.
Well, yeah, and you know, at the beginning, when after he wrote the story, we did get a few negative reactions from some people in certain offices about, you know, the content involved. And we were both like, if they want us to change it, we'll print it ourselves, and we'll do like nice screen printed covers. We'll, you know, it'll be all DIY. Yeah. We don't need a publisher, you know, and we're fully ready to do that at any point, honestly. And I'm hoping that we do more of that at some point, you know.
Yeah, it would be really neat to branch off and be completely independent of any kind of corporate machine. But realistically speaking, Comixology has been very, very good to us, and we're really thankful to be part of that platform.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, it gets a lot of eyes on something that they might miss out on otherwise.
Yeah, totally.
I'm gonna mention, because I think what's really great, because, you know, Michael, as you said, you know, comics have literally come a long way, and we're not just talking about storytelling and so forth. Because, Michael, I'm going to point back, you know, like when you were growing up, you didn't have a comic book shop, you had a library. Noah, you had a comic book shop, you know, close by to you. Nowadays, with Comixology, it's whoever has internet, whether it's someone on a small island of Lanai as part of the Hawaiian chain, that, you know, that of course definitely will not have a comic book store. Majority, if they do have a bookstore there, it'll probably just only carry the big two. You know, to someone that's living in small town USA, whoever has internet, they have accessibility to Comixology. You know, so they get to read, you know, your stories basically day of release, which is incredible.
That is incredible, and it's super heartening because, like, the day after this book was made available, we were getting people from India saying, "Oh, I love this story." Yeah. People from all over the world. So for us to be able to have that kind of reach overnight,
yes,
and for many of these people, you know, if you've got Amazon Prime, Kindle Unlimited, or Comixology Unlimited, you get access to this thing for free, and you should take advantage of that. And if you don't have access to it for free, it's, you know, it's $6.99 for 137 pages. Hard to beat that deal. But you definitely bring up something that's super important to us, which is, if I had something like Comixology at my disposal as a young person, there's tons of free content on there. There's there's a whole free section that would have changed my life. To have access to some stuff for free, and to be able to look and see it, like it's like having a comic shop in your pocket.
Yes.
So in that way, we're so lucky to be part of this thing, and that's kind of the direction of comics. We love physical media. You know, we can't wait for the day when we're holding a copy of Double Walker, and it's right there, and you put it on your shelf and you look at it and you say, there is a thing that I have created, and I can pick it up and I can bop myself on the head with it if I so see fit. But to be able to exist for a time in the digital space, where it's like a strange secret to people who don't access comics in that way, is kind of exciting. And it's kind of neat too when we've heard from a number of people, like, I downloaded Comixology just to check out your thing. It's like, cool, like, go explore, like, see what else you find on there. Because for a lot of these people, it's their first time comic readers.
Yes.
Because they've seen they've seen reviews or they've seen interviews with us or something, and they realize like, oh, this isn't like any comic book I've ever heard of before. This looks like that weird, scary movie I watched last year, and blah blah blah. Go on, check it out. Double walking, baby. Comixology.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things that someone said in a review, was that they couldn't believe that Comixology would put out something this weird as an original, because that's why Comixology is so cool, because they really do let the creators just do what they want, and they're incredibly supportive. And it's like you said, it's a massive platform where anyone that has Amazon Prime can access our book. And I think that it's also grown due to the pandemic and people not being able to go out and buy physical media. I think that the digital platform has become massive, and it's just been an absolute blessing in that regard.
Yeah. So we hope people, if you're in a town where you don't have a comic shop, or you don't have a shop that offers you a ton of options, like here's a weird option. Here's something that is going to be unlike the type of things that are typically found in your LCS. And we love local comic shops. We don't see a competition between the digital space and local comic shops. In fact, it's been kind of proven that you aren't harming your comic shop at all by occasionally purchasing something off of Comixology. So it's okay. Comic sales are doing really well this year.
Yes.
Support your local comic shop, but also support, Noah and I. We're just two people with the help of Taylor and Kyle, and we made a thing, and we made it with love. And the thing that we get to love now is knowing that people are stumbling across this thing or seeking it out and having their minds blown. Maybe being a little damaged by it. That works for us.
One other thing I want to add too, I think what's great with, Double Walker being released on Comixology first digitally, what's great is the people that either love digital or, love both digital and hard copies, we can go tell our friends about it. The ones that want, I only want to, I want something in my hand where I can turn the page. But we can, tell them this is a good book. When it comes out through whatever publisher, pick it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think sometimes people gotta quit telling themselves that they're something. Like, I'm a physical guy. I'm a this guy or that guy. Quit like, why are you making weird rules for yourself? Like, you can go read it on your phone on the toilet. Who cares? Check it out. If it connects for you,
yes,
cool. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden, like, now you have to buy all your comics on a digital platform and get a hard drive don't worry about it. You can just check it out. Like, why quit being a weirdo? Like, it'll get printed one day, and if you still want to own a copy of it where you hold it, and I like the smell of wood pulp or whatever, you can have that moment later. For now,
I think that there is that kind of completist, like purist mentality in collecting, because I remember when Blu-rays came out, I looked over at all my DVDs and I was like, I'm gonna keep buying DVDs because look at all of them, and then I bought a Blu-ray and I almost had to hide it from my DVD collection because it's like, sorry, but I get that mentality totally, and I think you're right. It's kind of an unhealthy mentality because you are kind of creating these boundaries for yourself that are unnecessary, and there's that compulsive kind of attitude where it's like, oh, I couldn't possibly do that because it's not what I do, and
right. I hate it because I hate when people limit themselves. Like, I hate when people say like, oh, I can't draw or I can't write or some. It's like, you've with that attitude, you're right. You can't. You've already stopped yourself. You've already created a wall. And I'm not judging these folks. I have negative self-talk all the time, but I would encourage people, live a little openly. There's all kinds of novelty that will happen to you when you allow novel things into your sphere, like trying a different type of food, or like smiling more often. You know, these are wild concepts, and I have to remind myself to do these things, and I'm encouraging people to do that, specifically with regard to Double Walker. If you've never checked out a digital book before, maybe this is the first time. Maybe it'll be the last time. Maybe you'll spend a moment with it and decide, like, man, I really can't read it this way. But I encourage you to give it a shot, and it would be an honor for us to be your first effort at it.
Absolutely. Greatly appreciated.
Okay, before I start moving on to the fun questions, because I'm slowly wrapping this up, because, you know, I read Double Walker on Comixology. You know, I really love it because, to me, you know, it drew me into the story. The dialogue felt natural. And like I said, again, it just kept the story just kept pulling me in more and more. And Michael, like you said, it was a page turner. It you know, for me, it really was. And then Noah, you know, like I said, I love your art style. It was hauntingly beautiful. I love your use of colors. It was, and for me, like I said, I'm not an artist, and I hope I'm not offending you, but the colors were just right. It was very subtle. You know, like I said, it's just hauntingly beautiful and visually stunning at the same time.
Thank you
I
so
love
much.
your play on the colors. Because it's a nice, it's a different contrast from whatever comics I'm reading in print nowadays, because it's always bright and so forth. And sometimes I do like that, but for this story, it was perfect. So,
Thank you. Yeah, you know, I only used 4 colors throughout the whole book, so yeah, I played with, you know, layering and things like that, but I tried to stay true to that old, you know, 4-color printing look, and you know, you layer magenta over yellow to create a red, you know, kind of thing, and that was just so fun to play with. And I knew my my constraints on every page, and I was like, how can I make this work, you know? So, but I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Oh, no, you're welcome. I'm sorry, Michael, were you going to add something? Sorry, Michael.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I too, like, we knew that this was gonna be full color from the very beginning, and we knew that this was gonna be Noah's first time coloring something of this length and magnitude. So I had a similar reaction to what I would hope the reader's reaction is when they see this, which is that it's dynamic. It's subtle and understated, but so perfectly executed. And it to me, it makes me feel like, oh, this is an overcast day always in the story. Always there's big, heavy, ominous clouds that are just waiting to drop rain on you.
Yes.
And then in the nighttime, in bar sequences, it's that eerie, like, what is that, a 10-watt light bulb to light this whole place? And so there's long shadows cast over everything. Perfect for horror, perfect for this type of horror that leans into the unspoken and the unseen, and the creepy things that you can't quite make out.
Yes.
Noah just nailed it. Love it, love it, love it. And he, like, it's so cool to be able to, like, check out a book and to just be able to be a fan of it.
Yes.
You know, I can just look at Noah's art and just be a fan. You know, like, if my name wasn't on this book, I would be like, well, it looks awesome. You know, let's see what it reads like. So hopefully we delivered the old 1-2 punch of giving the story a compelling plot, interesting characters, and of course, the most important ingredient of any comic, it's a visual medium. Make sure that art rocks. Make sure that it's out of control. And I knew working with Noah, we got that. Half the battle is won.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of pressure. Make sure the story is cool, man.
All right. So I'm going to start slowly wrapping up. Michael, thank you very much. Okay. Fun questions. Fun questions. Have you guys been to Hawaii?
I've never been. Yeah, neither of us have been to Hawaii. I've got friends who are from Hawaii.
Oh.
And they've often said, Michael, you should go to Hawaii. And I've said, yes, I should. But I just haven't yet. Yeah. Maybe there will be a cool comic convention or something out there that will be a good excuse for Noah and I to go out there. We'll say that we're going out there for work, and then we'll just we'll go to that bar that you mentioned and hear about Hawaiian folklore and drink.
One of those local bars, yeah.
Yeah, that's enough of a reason to go for me. I want to hear about that folklore. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I've always been interested in Hawaii. Like, Hawaii is, especially where it's like part of the United States. I can say I've been to every single state except for Alaska and Hawaii. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm more inclined to probably get to Hawaii.
Yes.
I think I'll get to Hawaii and then maybe get to Alaska at some point. But yeah, I'm ready to go. You let me know when there's a convention, and we'll make it tax deductible. We'll get out there.
Well, I'm going to let you guys know there are. Oh, Michael. Oh, there you go.
I'm still here. Sorry about that.
No problem. Okay, but yeah, so there are 4 conventions in Hawaii. 2 of them are on Oahu, one's in Maui, and one is on the Big Island. But yeah.
I don't see any reason why we can't hit all 4. We'll make it a long stay.
All right. Let's see. Again, can you guys promote your social media platforms?
Yeah, you can find my partner and my favorite artist in the comics game, Noah Bailey. You'll find him on Instagram at Boyish Death Tribe and on Twitter at Boyish Death. And you can find me on both of those same platforms at Michael W. Conrad. Noah, you gotta go check out his social media. He's got a bunch of incredible stuff outside of the comics that you're able to see. Mm-hmm. He's got a variety of prints and other mini comics, posters that he has worked on. He's done stuff for like Stranger Things and Halloween and all these great horror films. It's, if you're into that kind of thing, I mean, I'm hoping you are, and I'm hoping you go check out at Boyish Death Tribe over there on Instagram. And I'm okay too. You can check me out too, right, Noah? They should check me out.
Oh yeah, well yeah. Michael's not mentioning his solo comics that he's done, which are actually fantastic. I mean,
thank you, Noah.
No, seriously, he's an incredible artist on his own, and he doesn't even need me. So
he's wild.
I'm blessed to be working with this guy. He's so talented.
Oh, stop.
It's true. I mean, that he's got a short coming out in a new horror anthology that he drew by himself, and he showed me the pages for it, and I was blown away. I almost didn't believe that he did them. I was like, get the hell out of here. It's incredible. He's fantastic.
Thank you, Noah. See how much we like each other?
Yeah, I love this dude.
Yeah.
Any last words to our listeners?
Thank you so much. It's been so great talking to you, and I hope that we get to talk more. You know so much about film and comics and TV shows. It was a really good time, and thank you for having us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Jason, thank you so much. It's been an honor to be on the show. Super cool to get to know you. Hopefully this will be the first of many conversations, and hopefully, like I'm not even kidding when I say I would love to go to Hawaii, go do a convention,
Oh yeah.
get together and stuff like that. To people listening at home, I think a lot of people tune into podcasts about comics and interviewing comics creators because they're interested in doing it themselves. And I would really encourage you to do so. And the way that you do it is you find somebody that is a friend, and you work with them really closely, because it's very hard to make comics, and there's nothing more valuable than having somebody along in that struggle with you. And so that's part of why, like, Noah and I are playing around, but we legitimately have become like brothers in the process of creating these things. And it's because nothing was for certain. We're figuring it out as we go. Everything's been little baby steps, and it's getting a little bit better every day. But there was a time when none of this was possible. It seemed like it would never happen. We were just gonna like make a thing and make 20 copies of it and hand them to our friends and family and see what they thought. So if you're thinking about doing something, don't wait for somebody to give you permission. Don't say like, oh, if I'm not writing Batman, I'm not writing. Go make the thing. Find somebody who's willing to go on that ride with you. Motivate them. They'll motivate you back, and you'll get there. And it's a beautiful, beautiful journey. And this goes beyond comics. This goes to anything in life. If you wish to do something, quit wishing. Go get it done. We believe in you.
Noah, do you want to add anything else?
Actually, like when going back to the colors in this book, I was kind of worried the whole time I was drawing it. I was like worried about how I would approach the colors, and at a certain point I just kind of I thought of the 4-color method, and I said to and I thought, okay, what's Michael going to say about this? What's the publisher going to say about this? Are they going to be upset that it's just 4 colors? I can't really do that. And that's probably the biggest thing for me as an artist, is kind of battling against my own brain telling me you can't do that because it's not traditional. You can't do that because it's not going to be what people expect to see. And so that's always going to be my advice to artists, is to never allow that to trap you, and do whatever you want to do at any moment. And and I'm still battling with it, because I really want to draw in pencil all the time and do watercolors and get wild with it, grab some oil pastels and make scratches and stuff, and I'm going to do that. So I hope that other people find ways to let themselves be free in that way too,
Well, Michael and Noah, thank you very much for those closing words. Thank you very much for encouraging our listeners to break through their own barriers, to do whether it's either to make comics, to go into a career field that they keep saying, no, I can't do it. Just basically, it's just, it's just basically just go for it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Totally. I don't know if that saying YOLO, I know people probably stopped saying that. And that the reason that people stop saying YOLO is because they realize, like, oh, you don't only live once, you live a multitude of times. You're like caught you're in a loop of living all kinds of lives. I'm sure that's why people stop saying YOLO. It's not just battle. But let's pretend that this is our only chance. Let's just pretend. So strive to achieve your dreams. Be kind to the people around you. Be supportive of other people in their pursuit, and bless you. And bless you, Jason, for having us. This has been really a treat.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, guys. So Michael and Noah, I wish all the success, for Double Walker. It already sounds like it's a hit on Comixology. So again, to our listeners, please check out this original graphic novel on Comixology. Michael and Noah, mahalo. Thank you for your time, for giving me the opportunity to interview you guys. Thank you very much for your time. I know I said it was going to be an hour, and we've passed that. But thank you very much.
You weren't counting on me talking, man. I talk a lot.
It's okay. I'll be honest with you, Michael. I prefer, creators to talk instead of just giving short clip answers and then, But it's just thank you, And then
if you gotta edit it down, that's fine, baby.
No,
we're all good.
No, we're just gonna keep it like this.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. I also want to give a big mahalo to Pamela again for setting up this interview. So thank you very much, Pamela. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Pamela.
Thank you, Pamela. And thank you, Chip, too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I also want to thank Drew, my co-host for Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. Drew is the guy who's going to do all the hard work behind the scenes. And if you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. Until next time, guys, thank you for your, to you, the listeners, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys, aloha.
Aloha.